Slezak, and this is the Sunday evening news. We do it kind of news magazine style, University of the Air, and I'm doing the Mueller report. We're continuing at page 181. All right, here we go. Gonna redo this billboard. Won't take very long. And this is the Sunday evening news. Alrighty, and 3, 2, 1, we're going to start webcasting over the YouTube and on Facebook. So let me get up the Mueller report. Things have been a little bit mysterious on my HP 15, so bear with me. And alrighty. Don't like to tell you my my passwords and such like. Oh my, Amazon is like nosing in on my action here. Har har, big action out of me. They kind of glob up right there at the start of things. Okay, a 1 and a 2. Quick access might help if I... Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to quick access and uh-oh, might help to turn it right. All right, we got 7:30 here at the Voice of Stockton. It is the Sunday evening news, and I seem to have divvied up the downloads that I have received. So with that, let me search along here, and whoops. Oh my. Ran into this problem yesterday, and here's a System 32. And no, No, that's not it. Oh my. No, no. Not there either. Not there either. Wonder what this downloads shortcut is. What the heck? No, that ain't it. Nothing's opening. This is embarrassing. Oops. There's a lot on recovery, but oh wow. Uh-oh, that's the same list that was there before. And haven't started the beefy part of the show yet because oh yeah, I know what it is. But I'm not seeing that either. Oh. Go over here and check down. Still not seeing. Ooh. Not good, not good. Because I did take it down at one point. And that's what I've been using. This is a waste of time, I know, for viewers. And it was on another file similar to what's happened to the on one of our computers here at the station. Gonna continue to look. Still not seeing it. What we're looking for. Here's some new documents. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow. Here's the Al-Sahih Bukhari still up from yesterday's show. Here's another new document. These seem to be, they're about the Central Committee, of which I am a longtime member. They are filed where they belong, in the downloads. I'm not seeing where there's the extended file that I found last night. Not finding. Very embarrassing. That isn't it. Not finding, seeking Mueller report. Oh, there it is. Found it. It is in documents. Alrighty, that only took 10 minutes. And now we can get to report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Alrighty, let's get the audition going here. For that, need to put up a title block. To -09-09-22: Sunday evening news. Alrighty, starting in 3, 2, 1 at 7:42. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Slezak here. It's the Sunday Evening News, episode 18 of the Mueller Report, and we're going to be continuing on page 181, coming to you over the voice of Stockton.org, originating in the John Moriarty studio at 231 West Bedford Road, Stockton, California. We're right next to 2001 Pacific Avenue. And so that puts us right in the 2000 block of Pacific Avenue, so to speak. So here we got our file. I'll just bring out the whole thing and bring out a couple of pens. Get some tea going. Right. Again, I'm Richard Slezak. This is the Mueller Report. And we're going to just scroll on down to page 181, and oh, that's 181 of volume 1, and that's 176. 177, a lot of blackout, along with 178, most of 179. 180 we read, and here we are at 181, and we have 7:45 p.m. For that reason, this office's focus in receiving the question and resolving the question of joint criminal liability was on conspiracy as defined in federal law, not the commonly discussed term collusion. The office considered in particular whether contacts between Trump campaign officials and Russia-linked individuals could trigger liability for the crime of conspiracy, either under statutes that have their own conspiracy language, that's 18 U.S. Code 1349, 1951A, or under the General Conspiracy Statute, 18 U.S. Code number 371. The investigation did not establish that the contact described in Volume 1, Section 4 Supra amounted to an agreement to commit any substantive violation of federal criminal law, including foreign influence and campaign finance laws, both of which are discussed further below. The office therefore did not charge any individual associated with the Trump campaign with conspiracy to commit a federal offense arising from Russia contacts, either under a specific statute or under Section 371 Offenses Clause. Okay, we're on page 181. No charges filed on oh my, we need a bit more room here. The table needs to be bigger. Oh my. No charges filed on conspiracy. The office also did not charge any campaign officials or associate with a conspiracy under Section 371 defraud clause. That clause criminalizes participating in an agreement to obstruct a lawful function of the U.S. government or its agencies through a deceitful or dishonest means. See Dennis versus U.S., that was 1966, and there was also a ruling from 1924 and one from 2018. The investigation did not establish any agreement among campaign officials or between such officials and Russia-linked individuals to interfere with or obstruct a lawful function of a government agency during the campaign or transition period, and as discussed in Volume 1, Section 5A Supra, the investigation did not identify evidence that any campaign official or associate knowingly or intentionally participated in the conspiracy to defraud that the office charged, namely the active measures conspiracy described in Volume 1. Accordingly, the office did not charge any campaign associate or other U.S. person with conspiracy to defraud the United States based on the Russian-related contacts described in Section 4 above, and thus no charges filed on conspiracy upon Russians or Trump campaign people. Okay. Item 2 on page 181, potential coordination foreign agent statutes, that's FARA, and 18 U.S. Code 951. The office next assessed the potential liability of campaign-affiliated individuals under federal statutes regulating actions on behalf of or work done for a foreign government. Okay, let's get some statute numbers in here. Statute 18 U.S. Code 371, and they had it back up here, 1349 and 1951. Get those in there and back down the page. a governing law under 18 U.S. Code 951, it is generally illegal to act in the United States as an agent of a foreign government without providing notice to the Attorney General. Although the defendant must act on behalf of a foreign government as opposed to other kinds of foreign entities, the acts need not involve espionage, rather acts of any type suffice for liability. And rulings are dated 2010 and 2009 and 2005. An agent of a foreign government is an individual who agrees to operate in the United States subject to the direction or control of a foreign government official, and that's U.S. Code 951, and call this statute 951, and that's agent of a foreign government. And that's, ooh, that sounds like our man. Onwards to page 182. The crime defined by section 951 is, call that section, like the street here in Stockton, is complete upon knowingly acting in the United States as an unregistered foreign agent. The statute does not require willfulness and knowledge of the notification agreement is not an element of the offense. The Foreign Agents Registration Act generally makes it illegal to act as an agent of a foreign principal by engaging in certain largely political activities in the United States without registering with the Attorney General. And that registration requirement is 22 U.S. Code sections 611 through 621. The triggering agency relationship must be with a foreign principal or a person any of whose activities are directly or indirectly supervised, directed, controlled, financed, or subsidized in whole or in major part by a foreign principal. And those are subsection C1 of 611. That includes a foreign government or political party and various foreign individuals and entities. That's subsection B. A covered relationship exists if a person acts as an agent, representative, employee, or servant, or in any other capacity at the order, request, or under the foreign principal's direction or control. It is sufficient if the person agrees, consents, assumes, or purports to act as, or who is, or holds himself out to be, whether or not pursuant to contractual relationship, an agent of a foreign principal. And that's subsection C2. That, oh, wow. I like that so much. I'm going to take major note of it. And that's, oh my, 22 U.S.C. Sections 611 and that's C1 N2, section B, and yeah, all right. Defines Trump actions Russia for Russia and Saudis. Foreign agent. To me, he's broken those laws. Continuing. The triggering activity is that the agent, those lines are abrupt on that, directly or through any other person in the United States engages in political activities for or in the interests of the foreign principal, which includes attempts to influence federal officials or the public, acts as public relations counsel, publicity agent, information service employee, or political consultant for or in the interests of such foreign principal. 3. Solicits, collects, disperses, or dispenses contributions, loans, money, or other things of value for or in interest of such foreign principal, or 4. Represents the interests of such foreign principal before any federal agency or officials. What if they got the Bosch? I think they got the Bosch. It is a crime to engage in a willful violation of any provision of the Act or any regulation thereunder. 22 U.S. Code 618A1. It is also a crime willfully to make false statements or omissions of material facts in for the Foreign Agent Registration Act, registration statements or supplements. 22 U.S. Code 618A2. Most violations have a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment and a $10,000 fine, and that's also in Section 618. Oh my! This is Section. This pen is defunct. Section 618. And what are some of the juicies? A1 and 2. Yeah, oh my. Foreign agent. Yep. Violations, I say. Continuing application. Okay, it is 8:01 p.m. You are webtuned to thevoiceofstockton.org, also coming to you over YouTube and Facebook. This is the Mueller Report. No dancing ladies, just Richard Slezak reading it to you in the John Moriarty studio. Let me turn on the big screen behind me and we'll get a bunch of emblems flashing up there. Well, they're just rolling along. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Keep them doggies rolling. Let me check our video feed. And things should be going okay there. Politics, panorama, connections, all right, all right. And yes, there we go there. Let me take a tea break momentarily. Oh man. I'll be back in about 15 seconds. All right. Right, Betty. Yeah. Woo! That's it. Yeah. That's Trump. That's his performance in office. That's like right there. Woo! Oh my golly. And we are continuing here at the Voice of Stockton. Richard Slezak. It may as well be Shakespeare. It's the Mueller report. And boy, it reads like Shakespeare. This stuff's really, this is happening. This is current history. You know, what are the charges, Your Honor? Well, here's a bunch right here. I say, well, anyways. And get the headset back on. All right. The investigation uncovered extensive evidence that Paul Manafort and Richard Gates' pre-campaign work for the government of Ukraine violated the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Manafort and Gates were charged for that conduct, admitted to it when they pleaded guilty in superseding criminal informations in the District of Columbia prosecution. The evidence underlying those charges is not addressed in this report because it was discussed in public court documents and in a separate prosecution memorandum submitted to the acting Attorney General before the original indictment in that case. Oh my, such a spectacular government, the founders would be proud. Footnotes on this stuff come from Mr. Gates for the most part, and they're on page 182. Going to page 183. Oh man, violations done by Manafort and Mr. Gates. In addition, the investigation produced evidence of Foreign Agent Registration Act violations involving Michael Flynn. Those potential violations, however, concerned a country other than Russia, in other words, Turkey, the Ottomans. That's their 1,000-year-old name, and were resolved when Flynn admitted to the underlying facts in the statement of offense that accompanied his guilty plea to a false statements charge. Statements of offense were in his cases you've seen on the TV. The investigation did not, however, yield evidence sufficient to sustain any charge that any individual affiliated with the Trump campaign acted as an agent of a foreign principal within the meaning of the Foreign Agent Registration Act or in terms of Section 951, subject to the direction or control of the government of Russia or any official thereof. In particular, the office did not find evidence likely to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that campaign officials such as Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, and Carter Page acted as agents of the Russian government or at its direction, control, or request during the relevant time period. And we're on page 183. No FARA violations done by the Flynn or the Papadop, or who else did they have there? Paul Manafort. The Paul Manna. As a result, the office did not charge any other Trump campaign officials with violating the Foreign Agent Registration Act or Section 951 or attempting or conspiring to do so based on contacts with the Russian government or a Russian principal. Finally, the office investigated whether one of the above campaign advisors, George Papadopoulos, acted as an agent of or at the direction and control of the government of Israel. While the investigation revealed significant ties between Papadopoulos and Israel, and search warrants were obtained in part on that basis, the office ultimately determined that the evidence was not sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction under the Foreign Agent Registration Act or Section 951. Campaign finance, number 3 on page 183. Several areas of the office's investigation involved efforts or offers by foreign nationals to provide negative information about candidate Clinton to the Trump campaign or to distribute that information to the public to the anticipated benefit of the campaign. As explained below, the office considered whether two of those efforts in particular, the June 9, 2016 meeting at Trump, we're going down page 184, Tower, harm to ongoing matter blackout, constituted prosecutable violations of the campaign finance laws. The office determined that the evidence was not sufficient to charge either incident or as a criminal violation. Now, footnote, on 4 occasions, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court issued warrants based on a finding of probable cause to believe that Carter Page was an agent of a foreign power, and that's in U.S. Code 50, Section 180, 1801, the paragraph B, 1805A2A. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court probable cause finding was based on a different and lower standard than the one governing the office's decision whether to bring charges against Page, which is whether admissible evidence would likely be sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Page acted as an agent of the Russian Federation during the period at issue. A fair probability and not certainty or proof beyond a reasonable doubt or proof by preponderance of the evidence. Yes, those are the levels. Alrighty, so okay, campaign finance includes dirt on opponents. And continuing. Overview of governing law. The United States has a compelling interest in limiting participation of foreign citizens in activities of democratic self-government and in thereby preventing foreign influence over U.S. political processes. And that was a court case in 2011. Oh, and Kavanaugh was one of those ruling in 2012. In that end, federal campaign finance law broadly prohibits foreign nationals from making contributions, donations, expenditures, or other disbursements in connection with federal, state, or local candidate elections, and prohibits anyone from soliciting, accepting, or receiving such contributions or donations. As relevant here, foreign nationals may not make, and no one may solicit, accept, or receive from them a contribution or donation of money or other thing of value as an expense or implied promise to make a contribution or donation in connection with a federal, state, or a local election. We have 814 here at the Voice of Stockton. The term contribution, which is used throughout the campaign finance law, includes any gift, subscription, loan, advance, or deposit of money or anything of value made by any person for the purpose of influencing any election for federal office. It includes, among other things, the value of volunteer services. Oh my. Campaign includes dirt on opponents and volunteer services. Oh boy, like those Russians. And they didn't know they were Russians, but they were talking to a lot of Americans who were very much followers of Mr. Trump and things Republican. Oh my. Part of the campaign organizing mentioned earlier in this report around page 80. Alrighty, let me do a signal flow concerning our video signal. Whoop. And for that I need to come over here and check things, and they look to be working fine. Now we have a radio DJ, but oh, there it is. It's not operating at this time. Irksome. Okay, it is keeping time. So that shows it's connected up. Alrighty. Alrighty, we're on page 184. go on to the second full paragraph. Foreign nationals are also barred from making an independent expenditure or disbursement for an electioneering communication. And that's 52 U.S. Code, Section 30121, paragraphs A1C. This term, expenditure, includes any purchase, payment, distribution, loan, advance, deposit, or gift of money or anything of value made by any person for the purpose of influencing any election for federal office. It excludes, among other things, news stories, nonpartisan get-out-the-vote activities. An independent expenditure is an expenditure expressly advocating the election or defeat of a clearly identified candidate and made independently of the campaign. An electioneering communication is a broadcast communication that refers to a clearly identified candidate for federal office and is made within specified time periods and targeted at the relevant electorate. The statute defines foreign national by reference to Foreign Agent Registration Act and the Immigration and Nationality Act with minor modifications. The text definition yields 5 sometimes overlapping categories of foreign nationals, which include all of the individuals and entities relevant for present purposes, namely foreign governments and political parties, individuals, continuing on page 185, outside of the U.S. who are not legal permanent residents, and certain non-U.S. entities located outside of the U.S. Okay, footnotes on page 184. Campaign finance law also places financial limits on contributions. Oh, that was Citizens United 2010. Labor unions get their limits. And prohibits contributions from corporations, banks, and labor unions. Because the conduct that the office investigated involved possibly electoral activity by foreign nationals, the foreign contributions ban is the most readily applicable provision. Alrighty, this campaign finance law and foreign nationals. Contributions prohibited. Laws referenced. Alrighty. That's okay, continuing on 185, a knowing and willful violation involving an aggregate of $25,000 or more in a calendar year is a felony. Noting that a willful violation will require some proof of the defendant's knowledge of the law. And a knowing and willful violation involving an aggregate of $2,000 or more in a calendar year, but less than $25,000, is a misdemeanor. Okay, application of June 9th Trump Tower meeting. We're on page 185. The office considered whether to charge Trump campaign officials with crimes in connection with the June 9th meeting described in Volume 1, Section 4. The office concluded that in light of the government's substantial burden of proof on issues of intent, that is, knowing and willful, and the difficulty of establishing the value of the offered information, criminal charges would not meet the Justice Manual standard that the admissible evidence will probably be sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction. In brief, the key facts are that on June 3, 2016, Robert Goldstone emailed Donald Trump Jr. to pass along from Eamon and Aris Agalarov an offer from Russia's Crown Prosecutor to the Trump campaign of official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to Don Jr.'s father. The email described this as a very high level and sensitive information that is part of Russia and its government's support to Mr. Trump, helped along by Aris and Eamon. Trump Jr. responded, "If it's what you say, I love it, especially later in the summer," unquote. Trump Jr. and Eamon Agalarov had follow-up conversations and within days scheduled a meeting with Russian representatives that was attended by Trump Jr., Manafort, and Kushner. The communication setting up the meeting and the attendance by high-level campaign representatives support an inference that the campaign anticipated receiving derogatory documents and information from official Russian sources that could assist candidate Trump's electoral prospects. The series of events implicate the federal election law ban on contributions and donations by foreign nationals. Specifically, Goldstone passed along an offer purportedly from the Russian government official to provide official documents and information to the Trump campaign for the purposes of influencing the presidential election. Trump Jr. appears to have accepted that offer and to have arranged a meeting to receive those materials. Documentary evidence in the form of email claims supports the inference that Kushner and Manafort were aware of that purpose and attended the June 9th meeting anticipating the receipt of helpful information to the campaign from Russian sources. The office considered whether this evidence would establish a conspiracy to violate the foreign contributions ban in violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 371, the solicitation of an illegal foreign source contribution, or the acceptance or receipt of an express or implied promise to make a foreign source contribution, both in violation of 52 U.S. Code, and there are reasonable arguments that the offered information would constitute a thing of value within the meaning of these provisions. But the office determined that the government would not be likely to obtain or sustain a conviction for two other reasons. First, the office did not obtain admissible evidence likely to meet the government's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these individuals acted willfully, that is, with general knowledge of the illegality of their conduct, and second, the government would likely encounter difficulty in proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the value of the promised information exceeded the threshold for a criminal violation. Oh my, 8:27 here at the Voice of Stockton. Yes. Rather warm in here. Continuing. We're on page 186 now. And June 9 meeting, no charges. A threshold legal question is whether providing to a campaign documents and information of the type involved here would constitute a prohibited campaign contribution. The foreign contributions ban is not limited to contributions of money. It expressly prohibits a contribution or donation of money or other things of value. And the term contribution is defined throughout the campaign finance laws to include any gift, subscription, loan, advance, or deposit of money or anything of value. Phrases thing of value or anything of value are broad and inclusive enough to encompass at least some forms of valuable information. Throughout the United States Code, these phrases serve as terms of art that are construed broadly. Thing of value includes both tangibles and intangibles. Bribery statutes, theft of government property. For example, the term thing of value encompasses law enforcement reports that would reveal the identity of informants, confidential information about a competitive bid, secret grand jury information, and information about a witness whereabouts. And in the public corruption context, thing of value is defined broadly to include the value which the defendant subjectively attaches to the items received. The Federal Elections Commission regulations recognize the value to a campaign, at least some forms of information, stating that the term anything of value includes the provisions of any goods or services without charge, such as membership lists, mailing lists. The Federal Elections Commission has concluded that the phrase includes a state-by-state list of activists. Likewise, polling data provided to a campaign constitutes a contribution. And in the specific context of a foreign contribution ban, the Federal Election Commission has concluded that election materials used in previous Canadian campaigns, including flyers, advertisements, door hangers, trifolds, signs, and other printed materials, constitute anything of value, even though the value of these materials may be nominal or difficult to ascertain. And that was page 186. Campaign anything of value. And on page 187, we have 831 here at the Voice of Stockton. This is episode 18 of the Mueller Report. We're on page 187. These authorities would support the view that candidate-related opposition research given to a campaign for the purpose of influencing an election could constitute a contribution to which the foreign source ban could apply. A campaign can be assisted not only by the provisions of funds, but also by the provision of derogatory information about an opponent. Political campaigns frequently conduct and pay for opposition research. A foreign entity that engaged in such research and provided resulting information to a campaign could exert a greater effect on an election and a greater tendency to ingratiate the donor to the candidate than a gift of money or tangible things of value. At the same time, no judicial decision has treated the voluntary provision of uncompensated opposition research or similar information as a thing of value that could amount to a contribution under campaign finance laws. Such an interpretation could have implications beyond the foreign source ban. Imposing monetary limits on a campaign contribution and raise First Amendment questions. Those questions could be especially difficult where the information consisted simply of the recounting of historically accurate facts. It is uncertain how courts would resolve those issues. Willfulness. Paragraph B here on page 187. Even assuming that the promised documents and information that would incriminate Hillary constitute a thing of value, under campaign finance law, the government would encounter other challenges in seeking to obtain and sustain a conviction. Most significantly, the government has not obtained admissible evidence that is likely to establish the scienter requirements beyond a reasonable doubt. To prove that a defendant acted knowingly and willfully, the government would have to show that the defendants had general knowledge that his conduct was unlawful. Noting that a willful violation requires proof of the defendant's knowledge of the law, knowledge of general unlawfulness, this standard creates an elevated scienter element requiring at the very least that application of the law to the facts in question be fairly clear. When there is substantial doubt concerning whether the law applies to the facts of a particular matter, the offender is more likely to have an intent defense. On the facts here, the government would unlikely be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the June 9th meeting participants had general knowledge that their conduct was unlawful. The investigation has not developed evidence that the participants in the meeting were familiar with the foreign contribution ban or the application of federal law to the relevant factual context. The government does not have strong evidence of the surreptitious behavior or efforts at concealment at the time of the June 9th meeting. While the government has evidence of later efforts to prevent disclosure of the nature of the June 9th meeting that could circumstantially provide support for showing of scienter, that concealment occurred more than a year later involved individuals who did not attend the June 9th meeting and may reflect an intention to avoid political consequences rather than any prior knowledge of illegality. Additionally, in light of the unresolved legal questions about whether getting documents and information of the sort offered here constitutes a campaign contribution, Trump Jr. could mount a factual defense that he did not believe his response to the offer and the June 9th meeting itself violated the law. Given his less direct involvement in arranging the June 9th meeting, Kushner could likely mount a similar defense. And while Manafort is experienced with political campaigns, the office has not developed evidence showing that he had relevant knowledge of these legal issues. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, through 187, no charges for Trump team did not know campaign finance, foreign influence was illegal. So that makes an absurd defense. Whether or not it was illegal is beside the point. They did it. Just because they don't know the law. Boy, that's a strange way of doing law enforcement. Okay, we have 838 here at the Voice of Stockton. We're on page 188 now. Yeah, I'll be able to do the whole page. The difficulties in valuing promised information. The office would also encounter difficulty proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the value of the promised documents and information exceeds the $2,000 threshold for a criminal violation, as well as the $25,000 threshold for a felony punishment. The type of evidence commonly used to establish the value of non-monetary contributions, such as pricing the contribution on a commercial market or determining the upstream acquisition cost or the cost of distribution, would likely be unavailable or ineffective in this factual setting. Although damaging opposition research is surely valuable to a campaign, it appears that the information ultimately delivered in the meeting was not valuable. And while value in a conspiracy may well be measured by what the participants expected to receive at the time of the agreement, Goldstone's description of the offered material here was quite general. His suggestion of the information's value, that it would incriminate Hillary and would be very useful to Trump Jr.'s father, was nonspecific and may have been understood as being of uncertain worth or reliability, given Goldstone's lack of direct access to the original source. The uncertainty over what would be delivered could be reflected in Trump Jr.'s response. Accordingly, taking into account the high burden of to establish a culpable mental state in a campaign finance prosecution and the difficulty in establishing the required valuation, the office decided not to pursue criminal campaign finance charges against Trump Jr. or other campaign officials for the events culminating in the June 9th meeting. Then we have harm to ongoing matter blackout for the rest of page 188. All right, and going on to page 189, all of 189, and then most of 190. Okay. And I'll put continue on page 190. Double check that. Yeah. Alrighty, folks, got 8:41 here at the Voice of Stockton. This has been the Sunday Evening News, episode 18 of the Mueller Report. And we covered from page 181 through 189. So, yeah, it's dense. So, thanks for listening and watching. And we're going to be signing off now. And hopefully you'll get this on a replay as well, either the audio or the video with audio. Ooh, oops. All righty. First things first, we shut down the audition. And second, come up here and good, no, cut off of the